Well, a go-to voice on international affairs, not just on the Middle East, though I want to concentrate on that with him this evening, but on broader geopolitical issues, is Patrick Henningsen, geopolitical analyst, journalist, host of Sunday Wire, joins us now. Patrick, wonderful to see you. Thanks for joining us. Let's start with the orgy in Riyadh last night. When they broke into YMCA, I thought the kit was about to come off. It was something to behold, wasn't it?
I'm still speechless, George. It's just, there's so many different aspects of this that are so terribly wrong that it's hard to know where to start. I'll probably take your lead with some inquisitive questions on this, but I think the piece de la resistance of this whole conclave, I would call it Neocon exhibitionism by Trump, because he's joined a very special club here. He's effectively completed the life's work of Hillary Clinton and John McCain in legitimizing Al-Qaeda and ISIS, having a foothold, or Islamic State, right back in the middle of the Middle East. And it's, I think, a very bad move to have that photo op with Al-Jilani, which she did. I don't think, the problem, George, is here we're talking, you and I understand these issues. We've been following this. We covered these issues in the Middle East for decades. And I don't think Donald Trump understands even 10% of what we're probably about to discuss. And that's the problem. Does he realize what he's done by shaking hands with the head of Al-Qaeda in Syria, the deputy of al-Baghdadi, who's running pogroms as we speak in Syria against ethnic and religious minorities as we speak, and has effectively been rewarded lifting sanctions? I mean, it's just unbelievable. There's so many different beneficiaries to this. In the Gulf, between Qatar, who bankrolled the entire destabilization campaign of Syria, but it was a division of labor. Saudi played a role. Turkey played a role. Jordan played a role. Israel played a role. The United States, NATO countries played a role. France, Britain, they all played. Germany, the Netherlands, everybody who backed the white helmets and all of these, quote, civil society operations in Aleppo and northern Syria, they all played a role in this 14-year dirty war against Syria, and they're all sanctioning the EU, the United States. The sanctions that all these people cheered for, demanded sanctions be put for 14 years on Syria, and now they're same people are celebrating that sanctions have been lifted. They never really cared about the Syrian people. Of course they didn't. But it just shows you that it's like the whole hypocrisy of this whole dirty episode, this whole epic, is now laid bare. And Donald Trump was the man to do it. This is the final humiliation of America. In my, I mean, it's a bad photo op to be complimenting the head of Al-Qaeda in Syria, saying what an attractive young man he is with a very strong past, said Trump. I don't know what to say. I'm speechless, George.
That goes to a point you made, and one does so reluctantly because one doesn't want to insult the United States by saying their president is an idiot, at least so close to the last guy who was certifiably an idiot by the end. But what can you say about a president of the United States whose only words about the deputy of al-Baghdadi and therefore co-founder of ISIS, and previously the deputy of al-Zarqawi and deputy leader of Al-Qaeda, when the only thing you can say to the cameras about him is that he's an attractive young man with a strong past? Well, what do you mean a strong past, Donald? Do you mean the deputy leader of the guy that knocked down the Twin Towers? Do you mean the deputy leader of the guy that cut Daniel Pearl's throat, that cut Ken Bigley's throat on camera? I mean, couldn't you even say, well, look, we were the enemy of this guy, but we're ready to give him a chance. Couldn't you even acknowledge the pain of the victims of ISIS and Al-Qaeda? Or did you not even know? Did nobody tell you who this guy really is?
There's the bounty. The U.S. government had a bounty on this man's head just a couple of months ago for a number of things, for the slaughtering of Druze. Yeah, for the slaughtering of Druze, for the killing of American servicemen in Iraq, and the list goes on and on. And so where's Marco Rubio on this? Marco Rubio is a great crusader against global terror, apparently. They keep 5 minutes doesn't go by and they say Iran is the #1 sponsor of state terror in the world, which is a complete trope. But here you have an actual here you have the Islamic State that ISIS could never manage all those years when Assad was in power in Syria, and they finally got it. And everybody's just, well, it's not Al-Qaeda anymore. This is the new president with no parliament. And you know, there's a couple of things here that are a complete departure from precedent. One of them is whenever there's a coup or whenever there's a junta, and this is a terrorist junta effectively in Syria, the U.S. government, the British government, UN Security Council, their policy is to demand elections. Give us a date. You must have elections. That legitimizes the junta, if indeed it is a junta. But none of that. They've suspended that requirement for this guy, al-Sharar, a.k.a. al-Jilani, and also for Zelensky as well. There's no expectation of liberal democracy norms anymore. And that's, now this whole thing has become so transactional. And so Trump is basically turning a blind eye in order to give global capital access to the minerals, to the resources of Syria. They will privatize everything. They'll sell off everything. And in return for Jolani, who's not even an elected leader, to normalize relations with Israel as a top priority, but also just basically to open the gates to allow, and in exchange for that normalization, the U.S., Donald Trump, the U.S. government, Democrats and Republicans, the British government, the French, everybody will turn a blind eye to a Kristallnacht that is going on right now against Alawites and Christians. But they're celebrating right now that they've got Trump has given them the green light, basically. And the violence domestically in Syria is unspeakable. In fact, the ISIS, the hardcore ISIS fighters that are in the prisons in Hasaka, that the Kurdish SDF forces have been guarding for these years, Trump's basically given Jolani now the green light to take over those prisons, 9,000 hardcore ISIS fighters. So the head of Al-Qaeda is now taking over all these ISIS fighters that have been in prison. What's going to happen to them? Are they going to be released? Will there be a magical jailbreak? Will they be given amnesty? What I will say, George, this will guarantee U.S. military presence in Syria indefinitely. That's my prediction.
Now, you mentioned Israel. Let's turn to that. I read your material assiduously. There's not a day goes by when I'm not checking out what you've got to say. Tell the viewers what you think is really going on between Trump and Netanyahu.
I think that was a kind of canary in the coal mine moment, because following this supposed spat between Netanyahu and Trump, that I had not seen any actual evidence for it. A lot of it's innuendo and very conveniently leaked stories in the Israeli press, by the way. But there is a political desire within Israel, a power struggle, seeing Netanyahu as a major political liability for the state of Israel. It's becoming an existential issue. So the internal political problems in Israel could destabilize the state as an international actor in this case, which would be very interesting. But if you look at the way the world's press has changed, you've seen a sea change in the narrative. Now all the major mainstream publications are acknowledging it's a genocide. Israel's gone too far. I mean, gosh, it's taken them long enough. You know, we're in the 20th month now. But anyway, better late than never, I suppose. But there's clearly this acceptance across the establishment that Israel is beyond the pale now. And they would like to probably lay at the feet of Netanyahu. So maybe Trump is a sign of that Israel's become more of a liability than an asset for America, but the lobby is still heavily invested in the U.S. political system, and that's not going to be easy to extricate yourself from that, Democrats and Republicans. But you can see definitely a change when the media is changing en masse on this and shifting and pivoting. This is significant. It means that I think global capital wants to park money, assets, and investments in the region, and Israel is actually an impediment to that, which is interesting. Okay. Also, the situation in Syria, the instability there, that might also be an impediment to that. Certainly for the Qataris, any gas pipeline project they have planned, as well as all the other various pipelines and gas projects and so forth, canal projects, all sorts of things up for grabs in the region. But global capital can't, the Gulf states can't proceed forward with this massacre that the Israelis are carrying out against the Palestinians. But how this is going to end, I have no idea, George. I have no idea. So the U.S. Trump changes his mind every couple of days. What he says today might not be applicable on Monday.
And absolutely true. Joseph Borrell, the famous former foreign policy chief of the EU, famously described Europe as a garden, and by extension, everywhere else as a jungle that was seeking to encroach on the garden. Now that he's retired, he has explicitly stated this week that what's happening in Gaza is a genocide. And as you say, there's this chorus now from the poshest people's papers all over the Western world. I think myself, if I were analyzing this apparent breach between Trump and Netanyahu, they're preparing to drop the pilot. They're preparing to bring down Netanyahu and replace him with a fresh coat of lipstick on the pig.
Yeah, I think so. But as we know, George, that the internal debate within Israel between, quote, liberals and the hard ethno-nationalist right, led by Smotrich and the Ben-Gvirs of the world, the debate is whether to go for full-blown genocide or ethnic cleansing. That's the internal practical Zionist debate within Israel, which isn't much of a debate when you consider the welfare of the native Palestinian population. But that's kind of where it's at. And you're right, they would love to basically make a lot of this bad toxicity die with Netanyahu's political career. And certainly within Israel, that suits them. Washington too, Europe definitely. And then basically carry on. What is the next phase? What is the next phase? Israel has committed to total warfare in Gaza now, and resuming total warfare. And you know what that's going to entail. And they want to make it so unlivable that there's no option for it's already unlivable. But they even bombed the European hospital. European International Hospital was bombed just a couple of days ago. And it's no medical, no education, no water, no food. It's still under siege. It's just ridiculous. But Trump gets on stage in Saudi Arabia and gives this speech about, they're treating them so bad in Gaza, the hostages or whatever, as if compare the Palestinians kidnapped and put in Israeli gulags and what they look like if they're alive when they're released. If they're released at all. And you look at the condition, the physical health, and the high spirits of the Israeli captives high-fiving Hamas on their way out before they're released. I mean, Trump is lying. And he's also lying. He sits there in front of MBS and says, we want to see this wonderful region, and the countries in the region are charting their own destiny, and we don't want to see them bomb each other. And the U.S. just got done with a 7-week bombing campaign against Yemen just last week. What's Trump talking about? The U.S. is bombing the countries of the Middle East. The U.S. armed Saudi Arabia, who carried out an 8-year war against their neighbor Yemen. So what is Trump talking about? None of this means anything. These speeches are just so vacuous and so hollow. They don't correspond to reality at all. And it just like, of course, it looks good. It sounds good. Neocon's Fox News audience, they don't care. It sounds, oh, it's great. It's really great. Meanwhile, Pete Hegseth, the defense secretary, is sitting there wearing a suit next to MBS, and he's got a tattoo that says infidel in Arabic on his right bicep. The defense secretary. I mean, so where are the Saudis on any of this? These are people who hate Muslims, who openly proselytize for rebuilding the third temple in Jerusalem. You know, that means demolishing Al-Aqsa, right? I mean, it's just ridiculous. So between Trump and the Gulf and this circus in Syria and Israel, I mean,
we're all used to fixating now on Gaza, but the cabinet this week has effectively declared the intention to annex the West Bank. They have literally taken control of Area C, which was supposed to be, under the terms of the Oslo Agreement, under the control of the putative Palestinian state in the two-state solution that every Western government claims still to be committed to. Every Western government except the US, that is. So, in fact, if the polarity, if the dichotomy is between Netanyahu and Ben Gvir and Smotrich, it's between bad and worse. And there's no real sign of any other political force with any other level of political support in Israel that might be able to be the new lipstick. Maybe, I don't know, what, a military coup or something in Israel? How are they going to get out of this conundrum that the only potential leaders of Israel other than Netanyahu are people who are even worse than him?
And arguably, George, Benny Gantz is going to be no better than Benjamin Netanyahu, effectively. I mean, he's unleashed the most violent, operations on Gaza as anybody has in his career. So it's just like choose between Ariel Sharon, Netanyahu, Benny Gantz, 6.5 dozen of the other. And the problem that you have with this situation is Donald Trump took a very big check from Miriam Adelson, which is almost like a down payment on the annexation of the West Bank. And that was Trump's first term, was he de facto recognized that the West Bank was Israel, the Golan Heights was Israel. And while all the action is happening in Gaza, we saw in the last 18 months, a lot of action was happening in the West Bank, but didn't garner any headlines. But they have made great strides in ethnic cleansing, in making life increasingly unlivable in the West Bank, and they believe in Israel that they're close to the finish line. They want Netanyahu certainly would like to, for his legacy, to see this project complete during his lifetime, and they think they're in the final phase right now. They've killed enough people in Gaza that if they just kill a few more, that they'll leave. They can push them into Egypt or Jordan or whatever. Same in the West Bank if that kicks off. What's the U.S. going to do? How are they going to restrain Israel? If Israel goes more aggressively in the West Bank, what's the U.S. going to do? Nothing. What are the Democrats going to do? Nothing. They don't care. What's the U.K.? What's Britain going to do? Nothing. What are the French going to do? Nothing. What are the Germans going to do? The Germans, the third biggest provider of military support to Israel, nothing. They're so locked into supporting Israel and attacking people that are protesting against the genocide in Germany. Germany is so obsessed with atoning for their historical guilt that they're willing to atone down to the last Palestinian. That's where Germany's at right now. There's nothing.
Yeah.
There is nothing. So where's it going to come from?
Mind you, Patrick, mind you, Adelson's check is long ago spent. The kings of Arabia wrote far, far bigger checks last night and this afternoon. Maybe Trump's just following the money.
Yeah, yeah. This is a big transaction. So it's interesting because Trump is following the money, George. But if you listen to, for instance, the foreign minister of Saudi Arabia, comments that he's made during this meeting, how important it is for them to resolve the Iran nuclear issue. They want a security architecture for the region. Okay, very important, high priority for Saudi Arabia. They want the stability. They've got projects, they've got plans, they've got Neom, they've got all these things on the burner. They can't afford to have the whole region. Israel wouldn't mind if the whole region exploded into Hades, but Saudi certainly is not going to benefit from that. So they have the leverage on Trump because they've promised direct foreign investment to bail out the U.S. economy. The UAE and Saudi Arabia, $2.4 trillion between those two countries. So Trump has actually put himself in a corner. That the Gulf Arabs, ironically, are able to go over the head of Israel right now and to the front of the queue at the door of Uncle Sam. And so this is one of the things that's going to bail out the U.S. economy. And it's going to help to stabilize the dollar. It's going to put liquidity back into Wall Street.